everyone, welcome to another video for SimonsSaysStamp.com. I'm starting out with some basil marshmallow cardstock, and it's cut to 7 inches wide by 9 inches tall, and I'm scoring it at 3.5, and I'm using my mini scoring board and it doesn't reach the full length, so I just scored it one way and then rotated it and scored it the other way so that I could get a full score line along the 3.5 inch mark. So I folded the card, and now I have a piece of some watercolor paper, and this watercolor paper is 3 inches wide by 9 tall, and I'm going to be using this stamp set from Paper Smooches. This is the Green Thumb stamp set, and I'm starting out by stamping this carrot image, and I did it 8 times just using some StazOn ink, and I'm stamping them directly onto some of that basil marshmallow cardstock that was left over after cutting my card base. So I put down my craft sheet, and I'm going to be doing some Inktense watercoloring. So I'm taking my orange Inktense pencil and coloring on a little bit of orange over on each side of the carrot. And by concentrating where I color the pencil on just one side, it's going to allow me to sort of have a faded effect on the carrot. So the left side of the carrot will be a little bit more intense than the right side. And I did the same with the green leaf part of the carrots. Just use that green pencil colored in on one side. And then as I add water using my water brush, it only kind of fades it off to one side. So after I was done with the carrots, I set those aside to dry, and now I'm working on the watercolor paper. Starting out with Distress ink and tumbled glass, and I'm going to be making sort of like a garden scene. So this is going to be the sky, and I'm spritzing that Distress ink with lots of water to really fade back that blue color. And then I'm going to be smushing my watercolor paper, just probably the top quarter of the watercolor paper. It's a really, really tall card. You just want the sky to be at the very top. So I've actually put this into the blue ink a few times, and in between each time that I put it into the ink, I dried it with my heat tool. That's going to make it so that the color that's already there is going to kind of dry into the paper so that you can apply more color on top and make it a little bit more intense. I also wanted to keep it really soft looking, so for any areas where I had a lot of water droplets and you could see where the water was pooling into the watercolor paper, I decided to take my mister and just mist that, and it softens up all that ink and gets rid of any of those sharp edges. So I dried that again one more time, put it right back down into that ink. I really wanted to get a little bit more of an intense blue color. This really pretty pale blue fades back quite a bit with water, so I had to do it a few times. So after I was done with the sky, I moved on to the ground, and you're going to see 3 Distress ink colors here, but I really only used 2. The first one is Walnut Stain, and I'm putting down quite a bit of that on my craft sheet. Sorry for the shaky video here. I put quite a bit of that down on my craft sheet because I want it to be large enough to coat the entire bottom half or 3/4 of the card here. So the other color I used is Rusty Hinge. It's a little bit more of a reddish color. I just wanted to bring out some of the reds and the brown. And then I misted that just like I did with the tumbled glass with the sky blue. And then I'm smushing that down, and I'm taking note of where the sky kind of starts so that I can make sure I don't overlap them too far, because I want to make sure I still have lots of blue to work with for the sky. So I smushed that in, and you notice I've got quite a bit of color down on this already. I've got some areas where the ink is really pulled up, so I'm going to spritz that, and that's going to soften all the ink. The thing that's really cool about doing this with Distress inks is that you can keep applying water, and they'll keep playing with each other and mix and meld, and you can really get a nice smooth color transition. So since I dried that, I pounced that back into some more color. Or actually, before I did that, I decided to sort of smooth out that top line where the ground meets the sky. So I just took my water brush and painted in some of that color. And I tried to get it dark enough that it would sort of fade into the colors below. And then I decided that I would pounce it into the ink splotches again, just to get lots of interest. I want this dirt down here to look really, really rich, and like it's lots of soil, really, really deep, rich, moist soil for our gardening. I'm not a big gardener myself, but I imagine that's what you want. So I'm just adding a lot more color, and I'm drying in between each time I do this. And here's the last time I put it into the ink, and that's the exact look I wanted. I started to dry it with my heat tool, but then I realized that those little spots of ink were going to take forever to dry, and I didn't want to burn my paper. So I brought in a paper towel and just used the tip to pick up some of that ink that had kind of fallen into those areas, and it just soaks it right up and makes it so I can dry it more efficiently without burning my paper. So I'm taking an X-Acto knife and I'm cutting into some areas on the ground. I'm going to be sliding those carrots into them so it looks like the carrots are poking out of the ground. So I'm just adding some kind of curved lines and some little slits. I'm not doing this in any specific way, but if you were uncomfortable doing this just freehand, you could definitely sketch in some lines with a pencil and then follow the lines with your knife. So adding some shading right behind where the carrots will be sticking out. So I'm using my fingers and pressing up the top part of those little cutouts so that I can add shadow and shading only to the top half, because the bottom half will be in front of the carrot, so there would be more light, but these areas are behind the carrot, so I'm adding more depth of color. And it doesn't seem like it would really have much effect on the final image here, but once we put the carrots in, it'll look lots better and look like they're more integrated into the watercolor area. So after I'd colored all those shadows, I took the watering can from the stamp set and stamped that right at the very top. I'm going to be using a little bit of that black soot that I was using. I used a distress marker and I just colored on my craft sheet and then picked up with water. And now I'm adding that distress marker directly to my project. It's just going to make the color a little bit more intense. So I'm picking that up again and adding water, and I'm going to be spreading that black ink over about 3/4 of the way of the can. Just getting that distributed all across the image there. And then I took my heat tool and dried it off once again. So now it's time to get the carrots ready. So I went around and I fussy cut all the carrots, and then took a black brush tip marker and kind of painted the edges of the carrots. This is going to give the carrots the look of perfect cutting, even though I didn't, spend that much time cutting them out. But adding that black edge is going to make them look perfectly cut out. So I took some foam squares and cut them in half and then in half again. And this is going to make these foam squares small enough that I can put them on the back of the carrots and then apply them to the ground area of our scene here. So I'm just putting some foam right on the back of the carrot at the top of the orange part, and then sliding the tip down into the ground and pressing that down. And I ended up using all 8 carrots. I wanted some really fun carrots filling up the bottom of the card. So just slid those into all of those different little areas. And then I started to work on the sentiment. I've got some cardstock vellum here. This is from Basil. It's 40-pound vellum. Just ran my Inkadikaju embossing magic powder bag over that, and then stamped the sentiment in Versamark ink. I'm using some Hero Arts embossing powder. It's a really nice white embossing powder. And then I heat set that until it was melted, trimmed it down, and now I'm folding it around the edges of our watercolor paper here. Just used some regular runner adhesive to add some adhesive and stick to those tabs, and then folded it over the edges of the watercolor and added foam to the back. And I've been really generous with all the foam because watercolor paper can warp after you put all that color on there. So just adhered that down to our card base that we prepared earlier. I went around the outside edge of my watercolor piece with some white dash lines, and then applied glossy accents over the entire watering can. And it looks a little bit milky and cloudy right now, but when it dries, it'll be completely clear. You can see the shine on that watering can. And that's the card for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.